So with pre-season testing at Barcelona just around the corner, I thought it would be time to go over my 2022 driver predictions. Now this is going to be my entry into the Audience Prediction Championships to play along with you guys as the season progresses. If you would like to get involved and submit your driver predictions for the end of this year, then follow the link in the description down below. We will at the end of my predictions be comparing them to what you guys have so far predicted. But without further ado, let us get on into my 2022 driver predictions. And so we start at the bottom of the list with Guan Yu Zhou. Now personally, I'm not expecting too much from Zhou and equally not expecting too much from Alfa Romeo either, so I've had to put him at the bottom. However, with 31% of the votes from you guys going towards Zhou, the majority of you have actually gone for Nikita Mazepin, with equally one vote for Lance Stroll. But for P19, I have gone for Nikita Mazepin. I feel unfortunately it's going to be much of the same for Nikita Mazepin in 2022, although I do hope that Haas is a little bit better considering they have had so long to openly work on this 2022 car. They biffed off the entirety of 2021 stating they would focus on this year, so hopefully they can push for some points. However, the majority of P19 votes from you guys actually goes to Zhou, so we have sort of flipped on this one, with 10 votes for Mazepin, 7 for Schumacher, and then 3 and 2 for the two Williams drivers. Where P18, I have gone for Yuki Tsunoda. Once again, not expecting too much from Yuki Tsunoda as he himself was surprised to be driving once again in 2022. Whereas the majority of votes for P18, 39% and 16 have gone for Mick Schumacher, with actually a very large spread for everybody else: Latifi, Zhou, Tsunoda, Mazepin, Bottas, Albon and even Stroll as well for P18. P17 I've gone for Valtteri Bottas, which is really unfortunate considering for the past 5 years he's been in a championship winning car and able to win Grand Prix. He's now going to be nearer the bottom end in Alfa Romeo. Whereas P17 for you guys has actually gone to Nicholas Latifi, taking 14 of the votes, then closely followed by Mick Schumacher, but also Valtteri Bottas does pop up there along with Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll. P16 on my list, I've gone for Nicholas Latifi in the Williams. Now I am hoping for a much better season for Williams. The car does look really impressive, and for Nicholas Latifi to just step up his game a little bit, he really has to prove himself against Alex Albon, who's had a year out from the sport. Whereas P16 for you guys, we actually have a three-way tie, 10 votes for Bottas, Latifi and Albon. Mick Schumacher finds his way to P15 on my list, a big step up from his 2021 performance. We once again see a very large spread of positions here for P15 from you guys, with the majority of the votes going for Albon and Bottas. But we actually see Esteban Ocon in the Alpine for the first time pop up in the low position of P15. P14, I feel I've gone for an unexpected result. I've gone for Pierre Gasly. Now, I know in my 2021 predictions, I actually predicted a bit of a fall from grace for Pierre Gasly, and I couldn't really have been more wrong, whereas I now expect that to sort of happen in this year. I don't really see too much coming from the AlphaTauri. We however see another large spread in the votes for P14, 12 going for Tsunoda, 8 for Stroll, 7 for Albon, 3 for Gasly and Vettel, 2 for Schumacher, Bottas and Latifi, and then 1 for both of the Alpines. Some people aren't expecting the Alpines to be super competitive. Then unlucky position 13, I've gone for Alex Albon. In his return to Formula 1, I do think he's going to outperform Nicholas Latifi, and I hope that that Williams is able to score points in the same way that the Haas is on a regular basis. Whereas unlucky P13 for the votes for you guys actually came out with Lance Stroll on top, 13 in total, then 6 for Tsunoda and Ocon, and 5 for Bottas. As we head now to P12, this is where we find the first Aston Martin of Lance Stroll. And again, in P12 for you guys, this is actually where the two Aston Martins pop up, 8 votes for Vettel and 5 for Stroll. I feel like it's going to be much the same year for Aston Martin, unfortunately. I don't really see too much happening in the way of performance. Where then P11 we find Esteban Ocon, the first of the Alpines. I do feel like it's going to be, again, a very similar season for Alpine overall, with Esteban Ocon ending in P11. with the majority of P11 votes for you guys actually going to Sebastian Vettel, 9 votes overall, then 7 for Gasly, 5 for the 2 Alpines and Ricciardo in the McLaren, and we actually end up with 1 for Schumacher and also Bottas. So some people expect the Alfa Romeo and the Haas to be scoring consistently enough to finish P11. So we then break into the top 10, and I have gone for Sergio Perez in P10. Whereas P10 for you guys is joint between Alonso, Ocon and Gasly. Now for all of the teams that are going into 2022, I feel Red Bull are going to drop off the most as they pushed so hard to try and claim the Constructors' title and for Max Verstappen to claim his first driver's title. Seeing the amount of development that they put into the car compared to other teams around them, I feel that's going to have sacrificed an awful lot from their progression going into this year. Hence why Sergio Perez is down in P10. P9 we find the first of the McLarens in Daniel Ricciardo. Whereas P9 for you guys actually goes to Fernando Alonso, taking 10 of the votes, and then we get 6 for both of the McLarens and Sebastian Vettel. Where interestingly we find Tsunoda and Albon extremely high up in this list in P9. Now P8 I've gone for the Aston Martin of Sebastian Vettel. Now this is definitely an interesting choice, as I did say with Lance Stroll, I feel like it's going to be a much the same year for Aston Martin, but I just feel that Vettel is going to be able to extract that little bit more that we saw in the previous year against Lance Stroll, and sort of take advantage of a couple of the crazy races that are definitely going to pop up in one of the longest seasons in Formula 1 history. Whereas P8 for you guys is actually joint between Perez and Ricciardo, taking 13 of the 41 votes. Then 4 goes to Sebastian Vettel, so 4 people have similar thinking to myself. Now arguably I've put P7 man Fernando Alonso a touch on the high side. However, we've got to all be a believer in El Plan. The plan that even Fernando Alonso wasn't aware of until the end of the 2021 season. Whereas the P7 votes for you guys was all over the place. We had such a large spattering, with 7 for Perez, 6 for the 2 McLarens, 4 for Alonso, Sainz and Leclerc, 2 for Verstappen, Vettel, Gasly, and 1 for Ocon, Mick Schumacher, and then both of the Mercedes, Hamilton and Russell. Now P6, I've gone for Lando Norris. I feel McLaren are going to have a very, very good season this year, but not quite enough to challenge for those top 2 positions in the Constructors' Championship. And P6 for you guys is also Lando Norris, with 7 votes going to Perez and 6 for the 2 Ferraris. And in P5, I've gone for George Russell. Now, although I feel like the Mercedes will still be a title-challenging car, I'm not sure whether George Russell is going to hit the ground running like everybody kind of expects him to do, like he definitely did in 2020 Sakir. Although I 100% feel like he's going to fill that gap quite nicely that has been left by Valtteri Bottas. And equally, P5 for you guys has gone to George Russell, with 10 votes overall, 8 for Sainz, 7 for Norris and 5 for Leclerc. And for P4 I've gone for defending world champion Max Verstappen. Now we know how good of a driver Max Verstappen is and how good he is at extracting the maximum potential from the car at every single race weekend, hence the large disparity between him in P4 and Perez down in P10. Even though I feel like the Red Bull won't be a Constructors' Championship contending car, I feel that Max Verstappen is definitely going to be up there and fighting to defend his title. And you guys have sort of thought similar, with 10 votes going to Sainz and Verstappen for P4. And so we head to P3. I have gone for Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. Now, I do really believe that this is going to be Ferrari's resurgent year to claim their first title since 2008. It has been so long since we've seen a Ferrari on top, and actually the last decade in the 2010s was the first decade that they didn't win anything. So I feel like it's got to come back to them in 2022. Now for P3 for you guys, you've actually gone for George Russell, taking 11 of the votes, with 8 going for Verstappen and Sainz as well. And that leaves our last 2 contenders. For P2, I've gone for Lewis Hamilton, and therefore for the championship of 2022, I've gone for Charles Leclerc. Now I think this year is going to be a mega titanic battle between Mercedes and Ferrari. It is going to be so uber close. It is going to be what 2017 and 2018 was, but all the way through the season. Whereas in those 2 years, Ferrari tapered off at the end and Mercedes ramped up. I feel like it's going to be nip and tuck all season long. With P2 for you guys actually going to Lewis Hamilton, taking 17 of the votes, with 7 for Charles Leclerc and 6 for George Russell. And so the champion for you guys, it actually came to Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc once again, but Hamilton took 16 of the votes and Leclerc just 12, with 8 going for Verstappen to defend his title, 2 for Lando Norris to claim his first, and then interestingly 1 for Sainz, 1 for Ricciardo, and 1 for Lance Stroll to be champion of 2022. And so there's my predictions for the 2022 driver standings. I think that Leclerc is going to take the title only just over Lewis Hamilton. Now remember, if you want to get involved in the Audience Prediction Championship, make sure to follow the link that is in the top line of the description. So what we're going to do now is take an average of all of the responses from you guys in the previous form and then compare them to my 20 positions in this video. So taking a look at our P1 slot, you guys went for Hamilton with an average finishing position of 2.07, whereas I went for Charles Leclerc. Then in P2, we actually switched. You guys went for Leclerc and I went for Hamilton. Now for P3, you guys have gone for Verstappen, but only just between him and Leclerc, whereas I, interestingly, have gone for Carlos Sainz. Then P4, you guys went for Russell, whereas I went for Verstappen, and then P5, you went for Sainz, whereas I went for Russell. Now our top 5 feature the same drivers, just in ever so slightly different orders. However, in P6, we both went for Lando Norris. However, we differ slightly in our P7 position. You went for Perez, I went for Alonso. The same goes with P8, you went for Ricciardo, I went for Vettel. P9, you went for Alonso, I went for Ricciardo, and then P10, you went for Vettel, and I went for Perez. So actually again, we've used the same 10 drivers in the top 10, just in very different orders, where they've switched ever so slightly. So that covers the top 10, now let's look at the bottom 10. So in P11, you guys went for Gasly, whereas I went for Ocon. Then in P11, you've gone for Ocon, with myself going for Lance Stroll. Stroll then finds himself in P13 for you guys, whereas I've put Albon in P13. Now in P14 we've switched the AlphaTauris, you went for Tsunoda and I went for Gasly. Then P15 is where we find Valtteri Bottas for you guys and Mick Schumacher for myself. P16 we've switched the 2 Williams, you've gone for Albon and I've gone for Latifi. P17 you've gone for Latifi, with myself going for Valtteri Bottas. Then for P18 you've gone for Schumacher, whereas I've gone for Tsunoda. P19, you've gone for Zhou, I've gone for Mazepin, and then in P20, you've gone for Mazepin, and I went for Zhou. So once again, we've used the same 10 drivers for this bottom half of the field, but in very different orders. And so there we go, there are my predictions all done and dusted for this year's 2022 Drivers' Championship. Now this is going to be one of the best seasons of Formula 1. We're entering a brand new era. It's the longest season on the calendar in history, and it is just going to be exceptional. Now please let me know in the comments down below what you thought of my set of predictions and exactly how we compare and where everyone is going to finish. Now if you want to become a member of this YouTube channel to receive exclusive badges and emojis as well as priority replies from myself, then hit the blue join button down by the red subscribe button. Or if you fancy receiving videos over 24 hours early before they release here on YouTube, then please subscribe to my Patreon. There is a link to that in the description down below. Both members and Patreons will both be featured at the very end of this video. And that is all I've got for you today, guys. I hope you have enjoyed, and I will catch you in the next episode with whatever and whenever I decide to make it. I'll see you guys then. With once again a big thanks to Elliot Crosson for their continued support over on Patreon. Your support over there and here on YouTube is very much appreciated.